Hello, hello, and welcome back to another UFC. Taking a brief intermission from ranking every NFL team because I'm actually making this like a week later than I probably should have. But listen, when a UFC event as fire as 317 comes around, I simply have to make a UFC video just based off just how I'm a good UFC pay-per-view makes you more interested into the sport as a whole, right? It was kind of a lull, right? Since I would say 308 is the last one where the event was so good, I made an entire video just because of it. But it had been a bit of a lull. There were some good cards, don't get me wrong. 313 sticks out to me, not 313, 314, the Volkanovski pay-per-view sticks out to me. But it's been a bit of a lull, right? But 317 just put the UFC back on the map, in my opinion. And I have to make a video in response. And this is going to be the top. Is it 20? I don't actually know how many fights on here. I see right now, currently, the UFC make. And by the way, these are fights that are not confirmed, or they might be confirmed behind the scenes, but I have not seen anywhere that these fights are booked yet. So these are the top fights in the UFC I want to be made in every single weight class, male weight class, that is, because respectfully, I do not care who, what's her name? Kayla Harrison fights next. So let's get right into the video. As always, thank you for watching. Trusty Google Slides backing me up, per usual. Okay, so listen, the number one fight to be made in the UFC, and it's not even close, the biggest fight in terms of the quality of fighters, right? Number one versus number two pound for pound. And this is the thing. I wanted Islam to fight Ilya before this whole recent. I wanted Islam to fight Ilya before Islam moved up to welterweight, before Ilya had officially, been booked against Charles to fight for the lightweight title. I've been wanting this fight for a long time because in the history of the UFC, I do not think we've ever seen two fighters who are so clearly, far and away, the best in the sport at the prime, the absolute prime of their careers. Islam looks like he's getting better every fight. Ilya is on the most legendary run in UFC history. This fight needs to be made. And I'm talking about it needs to be made more so than anything else ever. The UFC needs to put 100% of their effort into making this fight. The problem with that one fight at welterweight, and that is going to be against Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight title. It's not technically confirmed yet, but everybody knows that's what's going to happen. By the end of this year, Islam's going to fight for the welterweight title. And if he wins, brother, if Islam wins the welterweight title, we could have an active double champ versus double champ, number one versus number two pound for pound for the undisputed lightweight title. That would be the best fight in UFC history. It would be the biggest fight in UFC history. And depending on what continent it's in, I might drop a couple $1,000s to go watch that shit live because I can't even put it into words how much I need to see this fight. And the UFC fan base, by the way, I don't care what you want to say about any sport, there is no group of fans with less brain cells than UFC fans. I saw a poll recently where it said, who do you want to see Ilya fight next? And it had Islam, it had Paddy Pimblett, it had Arman Tsarukyan, and I Islam probably got like 70% of the votes, but it should be 100%. The UFC fans that don't want to see this fight don't deserve to even like own a television, to even watch fights in the first. They don't know what they're doing. So please, I will personally, if money is an issue, pay each of these guys seven figures. I don't care. I will personally, eight figures. I will personally put up a couple $1,000s to make this fight happen. I absolutely have to see this. Moving on. In my opinion, the best fight to make in the UFC, aside, well, in terms of champ fights, would be Pantoja moving up to fight Murad, the bantamweight title. I honestly do not know why this has not been like hardcore fans have been talking about this for a while. I don't know why it's not more popular, like the what's it called, like the official UFC media, like everybody that's like employed by the UFC. Nobody has talked about this. I don't know, like Pantoja's last two fights, he has not even mentioned moving up to bantamweight. There is not a single active champion right now who has dominated their weight class like Pantoja has. And Marab's up there. He's top three pound for pound, clearly one of the greatest fighters of all time. He's the best bantamweight ever in most people's opinion. And Pantoja now, I mean, he's it's a difficult debate between him and Mighty Mouse because it's different eras, levels of competition, all that. But I mean, if anybody in the UFC right now is deserving of an opportunity to move up and challenge for double champ status, it's Pantoja. But he has not been calling for it. So I don't know if he's scared, like he doesn't want to fight Marab or he thinks he's just comfortable in flyweight. I'm not sure. But I want to see this because two reasons. First of all, we're going to get to it later. I would like to see, I think there's two guys at flyweight who I would like to see fight each other first. So therefore, Pantoja could get a real good contender when he does fight his next title fight at flyweight. But I also think at bantamweight, there is a massive question mark on who's going to get the next title shot. People are talking about Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen coming off one win over Davison Figueiredo. His fight before that, he got 50-45. So one fight removed from a 50-45 loss, you're getting a title shot. That's the state of the bantamweight division. Marab has dominated everybody, and the people he hasn't dominated are on one fight win streak. So, yeah, this needs to happen. I think it would be beneficial for both divisions because it would give both divisions a little bit of a window for a true number one contender to emerge. So, and talking about the fight itself, I mean, who would be the favorite? I think probably Marab just because of the size advantage. But listen, Pantoja would be the most skilled grappler Marab's ever faced in his career. I think so, even more so than Umar, because as far as the UFC is concerned, I've never seen Umar finish anybody with the grappling. Like I've seen Pantoja finish his last two fights on the ground. So it's just I think this, and I think they're both brawlers, by the way. So if it's a situation like Umar and Marab where they kind of cancel out each other's grappling, they had a really entertaining fight on the feet. But I think Pantoja versus Marab would be more of a brawl on the feet in some really exciting grappling exchanges. So I really want to see this fight. Hopefully, yeah, I mean, if both of these guys continue to dominate their divisions, it's kind of inevitable that it would kind of have to happen, right? And I'm just saying the next bantamweight title fight, would you rather see Corey Sandhagen versus Marab or Pantoja versus Marab? Everybody in their right mind should rather see Pantoja versus Merab Dvalishvili. Moving on. Ilya versus Justin. Listen, this is the fight I want to see next at lightweight. And that might piss some people off because I just made a whole fuss about how Sandhagen was getting the fight coming off a one fight win streak, or getting the shot rather, coming off a one fight win streak. But here's the thing about lightweight. Lightweight is extremely interesting because there's so many options. But if you really break it down, I just think Gaethje makes the most sense right now because we're going to get to some guys later on why I don't think they deserve title shots. But Gaethje, he was on the back-to-back win streak against Fiziev and Dustin Poirier. He was arguably deserving of a title shot then. He did a favor. And you got to understand the way title shots work in the UFC is not like other sports. It is not about who's the best or who is most deserving. It's about like it's about things other than what normal sports are about. It's about doing favors, right? It's about when you're available. It's about weird, nuanced things that kind of make it bad in a way, but also make it more interesting. Gaethje did the UFC a favor when he fought Max Holloway on UFC 300, right? And now he recently beat Rafael Fiziev on short notice. And I just think when I'm thinking about the fighters right now who are in the UFC's good graces at the lightweight division, I just feel like Gaethje makes the most sense for Ilya because obviously they're not going to do a Charles rematch. They're not going to do a Max rematch if he beats Dustin. So it's like we're deciding between Justin Gaethje, who we know the UFC absolutely adores, Paddy Pimblett, who's coming off a win over Michael Chandler, or Armand, who we know the UFC hates. So I just think Justin makes the most sense. And also, this is my opinion. Ilya looks so absolutely insanely dominant. The only way I think you could beat him at this point is by being an Islam Makhachev, who's just the best fighter in the world, in my opinion, or knocking him out. Because with all due respect, the last three guys he's fought on this amazing, incredible win streak, I just don't feel like they've had incredible knockout power. Now, obviously, Max Holloway showcased that in his recent run against Gaethje and Korean Zombie and guys like that. But who hits harder, Gaethje or Max Holloway? I think we would all agree Justin Gaethje. I just think in terms of who really has a chance to beat Ilya in this division, I would say nobody. But a puncher's chance for Justin Gaethje. First of all, we know we're going to get a firefight. We know we're going to get a brawl. I think this would be a really extremely entertaining fight. First of all, but I just also think that, I mean, in terms of if we're being serious here, I think Ilya has the potential to get caught on the chin. And in terms of guys in this division who could put you away if they catch you correctly, Gaethje has to be at the top of the list. So, in terms of guys who actually deserve the shot, who I want to see get it first, would be Justin Gaethje, right? So that's just my opinion. And also, I want to see Ilya stay active. He is at the absolute prime of his career, and he strikes me as a guy who wants to get in, get out quick, right? So I think if that's the case, you should want to fight as much as possible, as often as possible. So I absolutely believe Ilya should get another fight in this year before, obviously, hopefully, the Islam super fight takes place in 2026. So if that's the case, I think Justin Gaethje in October or November makes the most sense for me. Moving on, we have this is the fight I was talking about earlier. Joshua Van versus Brandon Moreno in the flyweight division. This is the fight I want to see take place before Joshua Van gets his title shot. Listen, everybody loves Joshua Van. I was a Joshua Van fan a long time. Let's get that straight. But I want to see Joshua Van get tested a little bit more before he jumps in to a Brandon Moreno matchup. People aren't understanding exactly how difficult of a fight that is. First of all, let me make sure I'm correct here in that Joshua Van is on a 5 fight win streak here. Let me correct myself. Joshua Van is on a 4 fight win streak. He lost 5 fights ago to Charles Johnson, but let's talk about it. He got much better. He has improved rapidly in that span. He beat the number one, the true, by the way, number one contender in this division on short notice. So that deserves a lot of credit. But here's the thing. Joshua Van, although he's been on an amazing run and he fights often and everybody loves his fighting style, he's never fought 5 rounds. How can you get a title shot while never fighting 5 rounds? That this is the thing. I love Joshua Van, but I want him to go in prepared for a title shot against Pantoja because, in my opinion, if he fights Pantoja right now, I believe he's getting submitted in the first round. Maybe he could defend a takedown and he could, threaten Pantoja on the feet, but I just don't think he's ready. And I think a 5 round main event fight night headliner against Brandon Moreno would be the perfect preparation for a title shot against Pantoja. Obviously, Moreno is not anywhere near the same level of a grappler as Pantoja, but he's a former champion. He's been in 5 round fights seemingly for like the last 5 6 years. This is what he does, right? He lives for these high level top contender matchups in the flyweight division. And if Joshua Van can get past him, then we'll know for sure that he's ready for a Pantoja, and it won't feel like he was kind of rushed to the spot. You know what I mean? So I love Joshua Van. I do want to see him succeed, but I want him to be as prepared as possible. And I think this will just be a fire main event to a fight night card. So please make this happen, UFC. I have heard some rumors that Moreno Royval 3 has been confirmed, which, I mean, it is what it is. There's just not that many top contenders at flyweight, but I would like to see Joshua Van get a warm up fight before getting fed to Pantoja. And if it did happen, I would like it to happen on the Noche card, maybe as the main event, or in October. Next up, staying in flyweight here. I would like to see them rebook Brandon Royval versus Manel Cap. A lot of people are talking about they want to see Manel Cap versus Kai Kara France, but the problem for me is that I just am not that high on Kai Kara France. He got a title shot, I believe, coming off a 1 fight win streak knockout over Steve Urseg. And I just view Manel Cap in higher regard than I do Kai Kara France. And this fight was booked anyways. It was already supposed to be on 317. Manel Cap pulled out. He's pulled out of like a dozen fights in his UFC career. But listen, we all know how good Brandon Royval is. He has perennially been near the top of the flyweight division. He simply just cannot get past Pantoja and apparently Joshua Van. But I just want to see this fight. I was very interested in it when it was originally booked. I just want to see this fight happen. So I would like to see this take place again before the year ends. If they can both make that happen, if Cap can recover from his injury in time, um, I'm interested to see the unfinished business. I think it would be a really interesting fight here. So, and the winner of this, well, let me correct myself. Brandon Royval is not getting a title shot. It's just he he was the number one contender. He won 2 fights and he still did not get the title shot. Brandon Royval is never fighting for the title again in his UFC career, but he could be a real good stepping stone for guys like Joshua Van, Manel Cap. If Manel Cap wins this fight, he's almost certainly getting a title shot. So I would like to see this fight take place. Next up, the next featherweight title fight, I think, has to be Alexander Volkanovski versus Movsar Evloev. First of all, before I even talk about this fight in particular, let me talk about for a second how ridiculous the featherweight rankings are. Thankfully, I believe yesterday or the day before, they slightly fixed it because they removed Taporia for the rankings, but they still have Max Holloway as the number one contender, which makes no sense because first of all, he lost his last fight at featherweight, but also he has announced publicly he's not coming back to featherweight ever, and he has a fight booked at lightweight. So all that does is screw out Mobzar because you know what he is? He's ranked number two. So the only reason they're keeping Max Holloway at number one is because then they can say, well, Mobzar is not really the number one contender. No, he is the number one ranked featherweight in the world. That's not the champion. He is the true number one contender in this division. He's on a, what, an 18 and 0 record. He's undefeated in the UFC. He just beat Aljamain Sterling in an absolute grappling masterclass, but by both of them. It wasn't a dominant win, but it was an amazing fight to watch. And it's like Volk beat Lopez. He's already beaten Yair. Nobody else in that division is even close to deserving a title shot. It is a no-brainer that Mobzar should get the shot. It's just what should happen. Even Volk has said multiple times that he thinks Mobzar is the most deserving contender. But for some godforsaken reason, the UFC wants to get Rodriguez a title shot coming off a Patricio Pitbull decision win. That is embarrassing. In no possible world should Yair ever get the shot over Mobzar. Yair has won one fight in like the last 3 years. Mobzar's 18 and 0. It's mind-boggling to me that it's even a debate. Like the moment Volk won against Diego Lopez, the Mobzar title shot should have been announced right then and there. But for some reason, the UFC is like, oh, we don't know who to give the title shot to. It's an absolute no-brainer. This should happen early next year, because apparently Mobzar has a fucking fight booked on the Abu Dhabi fight night card against Aaron Pico. He has to defend his number one contender status against a guy who's never fought in the UFC. What the hell is going on at featherweight? I have no idea. But if he beats that guy, absolute fucking no brainer. But here's the thing. That makes me think that they're trying to give Yair the title shot to Volk at the end of the year and then have these guys, if they both win, fight early next year. So I have no fucking clue what the UFC is doing, but I have to see this fight before Volk retires. In his own words, he said this recently. He's never fought the dominant grappler in the featherweight division. I think that's what Mavzar is. It would be an interesting test for Volk, and if he wins, let's just say hypothetically, Volk beats Yair at the end of this year, and then he fights Mavzar early next year, and he wins that fight. Is Volk top three all time? I think he has an extremely strong case to be top three all time. And by the way, you could also make the case that the only losses he has was to number one and number two all time, and Islam and Ilia Topuria. So extremely loaded roster the UFC has right now in terms of like true all time talent between, I mean, Pantoja, Marab, Volk, Islam, Ilya. I mean, absolutely loaded top to bottom with absolute all time greats of the sport right now. But please, for the love of God, UFC, announce Volk versus Movsar Evloev before Volk retires. Next up, first of all, yet again, a historic fumble by the UFC. Diego Lopez and Yair Rodriguez had real, genuine heat going into 314 before their separate fights against two different guys. And the UFC did not bank on the potential of this fight. This should have easily, no brainer, been the main event of UFC Noche. But for some reason, the UFC has given Diego Lopez number 11. Let me correct myself if I'm looking at. No, I'm sorry, number 10, Gene Silva. Listen, it's an amazing fight. It's going to be an exciting, entertaining. I'm going to absolutely, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm at work, I'm going to be watching that fight. But still, this simply made more sense. Diego Lopez is coming off a title loss. He's currently the number 2 ranked contender. Yair is ranked number 3. Anybody with a brain cell would have known that the smart play would have been Volk versus Evloev at the end of this year, and then Lopez versus Yair in Mexico City. Well, they moved the main event, but it should have been the main event of UFC Noche. So I don't understand what's going on here, but yeah, UFC fumbled heavy. I have to see this fight early next year, hopefully, but who knows what's going to happen. Next up, I desperately want to see this fight. Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway 2. When Max made his decision that he was going to move up to lightweight, this is the fight I instantly thought about, right? Because these guys fought really early in their careers. I believe it was some freak injury, like Oliveira hurt his throat or whatever, so he had to like tap out the fight. But it was a weird situation, but two legends of the sport, two fan favorites, two guys who they've pretty much lost to the top of the UFC, but they've beaten pretty much everybody else. And I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Because I think Oliveira is going to take a bit of a break, coming off this knockout loss to Poirier. And whether or not Max beats Dustin Poirier on UFC 318, I think that this is the fight to make because both these guys are in similar positions in their division. Let me see where each of them are ranked now. Let me see. Charles is ranked number three behind Islam. Islam's still in the rankings, but Charles is ranked number three. Max is ranked number five. So, I mean, they're both currently ranked in the top five. And if Max was to win against Dustin and then he beats Charles by the end of the year, well, we're talking about the Max versus Ilya rematch, right? In 2026. But I want to see this fight because this just screams, BMF fight. If the UFC wants to keep that thing running in 2026, these are the type of fights they need to be making, right? Because these are two fan favorites who are going to give you some sort of entertaining fight. And yeah, I mean, this is just a fight where it's just like this could be an amazing co-main to any pay-per-view. Like I would watch that shit, no doubts about it. Promise you, guaranteed. So yeah, I just before Charles is gone and before Max is kind of out of his prime, I really desperately hope the UFC gives these guys the opportunity to run it back. Next up, Rafael Fiziev versus Dan Hooker. Fiziev is coming off his recent win on UFC Azerbaijan against Ignacio Bahamondes, and Dan Hooker has not actually fought in a while. His last fight was on UFC 305, if I'm not mistaken, against Mateus Gamrot. He was supposed to fight Gaethje at 313, but he broke his hand, if I'm not mistaken. He had to pull out of that, and we have not gotten any sort of announcement on who his next fight is going to be. And hey, I'll suggest the fight Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev has finally picked up a win back up after going like 2 years in a row without a win because of his tore his ACL in a fight against Gamrot. So I just think, Fiziev is ranked number 11 right now. Probably should be ranked around. Actually, no, 11 is good. But they're both pretty much in the top 10 because obviously Islam's not in the division anymore. So it's a top 10 matchup. And the winner of this fight should probably get, well, if Dan Hooker wins, he should probably get a number one contenders fight against a guy like Arman or Holloway, Gaethje, someone like that. And then if Fiziev wins, he breaks himself back into the top like 7 or 8, and he would be one fight away from a title shot, in my opinion. But this just screams banger. Can you imagine if this was the main event of a fight night? Like this would be absolute cinema, right? Two absolute vicious strikers, different styles, more technical versus more sloppy brawler type style. But this is must see TV. Absolutely, two of the best guys to watch if you're just a fan of like the old school UFC. And please UFC. This is my matchmaking side because I've heard no rumors, no nothing about this potential matchup. But this is something that I put together that I would love to see the UFC do. Next up, Arman versus Patty makes so much sense to me because listen, Patty is just so clearly one fight away from a title shot, right? Because people look and he say, well, he's ranked number 10 in the rankings right now. Well, so is Joshua Van. Then he beat the number one contender and he jumped up and now he's presumably going to be fighting for the title. Patty's in the same situation, in my opinion, right? He's facing higher and higher levels of competition, but he's not had an opponent yet, which can justify him for getting a title shot. Arman could do for Patty exactly what Brandon Royval just did for Joshua Van. Now, Arman is no slouch himself. He's pretty much the number one contender in UFC lightweight rankings right now. But the problem with him is that he pulled out of a title shot against Islam at UFC 311. Didn't ruin the card, but ruined the main event. Everybody was kind of bummed out about it. Dana was absolutely pissed about it. And he said recently that the reason Arman pulled out is because he missed weight. Now, there was a whole conspiracy that, Arman claimed he had a back injury that prevented him from making weight, but Dana just said that he didn't have a back injury. He just straight up missed weight. So, safe to say, he is not in the good graces of the UFC. And no matter what he thinks, he is not getting a title shot in his next fight. The UFC, Dana White, has made it very clear he has to win another fight if he wants a title shot. He does not seem to understand that. So, if he was a smart fella, he would take a fight against a guy like Paddy Pimblett, who I'm sure he thinks he could beat easily, and then, waltz his way right up to Ilia Topuria and, demand the deserving title shot at that point. But it just appears to me that he just thinks that the UFC are going to hand him a shot at the lightweight title when he is not at all in their good graces. So this just makes sense to me. These are the two guys that people are really talking about fighting for the title, and it just makes sense to me when you have two guys who are kind of making a claim for that spot. You have them fight each other to get a real undisputed contender. That's the way I look at things, at least. So, and also a really entertaining fight. I mean, who went like the grappling exchanges here would be absolute cinema. Who knows who would come out on top in this matchup, but definitely needs to be a 5 round fight. That's for sure. Moving on. Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley 2. Such unfinished business here. The first fight, listen, whatever you think about the first fight, some people say Jan was robbed. Some people think Sean, had the UFC bias, Dana White privilege, whatever. That's the reason he got by in that fight. I think we all can agree that fight was way too close to call, and we need to see a rematch before, Peter Yan retires. Because, I mean, and if you look at the trajectory of these guys, Jan's on his way back to a title shot, and O'Malley has just lost back to back, undeserved, by the way, his most recent fight against Marab. Who knows when O'Malley is going to come back because it's pretty clear he can't beat Marab. He's just not on that level as a grappler. But could he strike with Peter Yan in an entertaining co-main event or a pay-per-view? I would absolutely love to see it. I think it would absolutely make whatever pay-per-view it's on much more entertaining and attractive. But I just think it makes sense. If you look at the bantamweight division, O'Malley, I believe, is still ranked number one. I don't know if he should be, but let me see. Yeah, O'Malley's ranked number one. Peter Yan's ranked number three. So it just makes no sense for me, unless Umar is going to have a fight booked against one of these two guys. But it makes sense based on the rankings. It makes sense based on their history. It makes sense based on their trajectory, and it would be a banger fight if they decide to rebook it. So hopefully we get to see this in the not so distant future. Next up, this is a no-brainer. Bilal versus Usman. These guys have just about the most beef currently of any two fighters in the UFC. There's apparently a podcast that has not been released, which these two guys got into it on the set. So, I mean, Bilal was talking trash about Usman for a long time. Usman recently won his fight against Joaquin Buckley in surprising fashion, in my opinion. And he didn't call out Bilal, but I think it's pretty clear that Usman's one fight away from a title shot. And I think Bilal would be the perfect guy to fight in that case. I mean, Bilal should be ranked number one. Let me check real quick. Yeah, he's ranked number one. Usman's actually ranked all the way down at number five. So he kind of needs to take another guy in the top five. And I mean, who's better to fight for the number one contender shot than the number one contender? So if Bilal wins this, then obviously he has a case to get a rematch against either JDM. By the way, that was such an entertaining fight. The first fight, I don't think the UFC would have a problem giving Bilal the rematch just based off one win. And also, I think this fight makes the most sense as the quick turnaround, the co-main event of UFC 319 in Chicago, Bilal's hometown. But I don't think Usman's going to want to fight in such short notice after his win over Buckley. So the more likely scenario is that this takes place in October or November as the co-main event of one of those cards, because I believe there's going to be two pay-per-views in October because there's none in September. But hopefully we get to see this fight before the end of the year and before it kind of loses some of its steam, because these two guys definitely do not like each other very much. So UFC has to capitalize when they have opportunities like that. True heat between fighters. Next up, JDM versus Shavkat. Obviously, this will not be the next fight that takes place at welterweight, but it appears to me that the UFC have promised Shavkat a title shot. I think that, well, they did. They were going to give him a title shot based off his win over Wonderboy, right? That he had a fight booked against Bilal. I think it was against UFC. It was on UFC 3-9 or 310, but Bilal had to pull out because he broke his toe. So he was going to get a title shot on UFC 3-9 or 310, but he fought Ian Gary instead, short notice, and won. So he was already being given a title shot. The title holder pulled out. He fought short notice and won. I think the UFC absolutely has to give Shavkat a title shot in his next fight. Now, the problem with that is, who's he going to be fighting? Is it going to be JDM? Is it going to be Islam? Or is Islam going to win the title and then move back down to fight Ilya? So it's real confusing, the future of the welterweight division, but I want to see JDM versus Shavkat so bad. I've been waiting back on like damn near a year now at this point. Both of them have continued to win and do nothing but win, but it's like, when are we going to see them face off against each other? Maybe it won't even be for the title, but this is a fight I want to see very badly. It feels like these two have been on a collision course for a while, and hopefully we get to see it before Shavkat gets hurt again, because he's always fucking hurt. So Let's just hope that it happens. Next up, Ian Gary versus Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin's been talking crap about Ian Gary for a while. Ian Gary obviously lost that fight to Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Joaquin Buckley lost the fight to Kamaru Usman. So it appears that neither of these guys are ready yet for the top of the division, but I mean, a win over each other could absolutely put themselves right back in the picture of being, a top contender. Both these guys are pretty young as well. Like people talk about these two as like the future of the welterweight division. I absolutely see that. But it's like Ian Gary, he won his last fight, but it's like if if you watch the Ian Gary Carlos Prates fight and you ended the fight thinking, oh man, Ian Gary, he's really a top contender. He's going to be a problem soon. Ian Gary ended the fight damn near getting finished by Prates after dominating the first 4 rounds. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not sold on Ian Gary yet. I want to see this matchup. They're both ranked right behind each other, number six, number seven. So it makes sense based off the rankings. And I think it'd be entertaining as well. I don't think Buckley would let Ian Gary hold him up against the fence like he's been doing to some other folks in his recent fights. So this has a lot of hype behind it around who's going to be the true future of the welterweight division, in my opinion. Next up, Kevin Holland versus Colby Covington. Kevin Holland has now won back-to-back fights for the first time in a while, and Colby, he fights once a year and he loses the fight. When was the last time he won a fight? It was against Jorge Masvidal. That was like 2021, right? It's been a while since Colby won, but listen, in terms of this screams main card opener of a major pay-per-view, does it not? This just seems like a fight where it's like this just screams pay. Like these two guys are going to sell the fight. They're going to talk shit. They're going to take over a press conference, and there's going to be a lot of buildup going into a fight that really, based on the rankings, I mean, Colby's ranked number nine somehow, and Holland's ranked 14. So it doesn't have a ton of hype around it in terms of like, the winner of this is going to fight for the title. Obviously, that's not the case. But in terms of two big names, this, that carries this fight, right? And I think it could be entertaining. I mean, in terms of levels of competition, Kevin Holland certainly is not going to be as difficult to beat for Colby as Leon or Joaquin Buckley. But I also think that Kevin Holland is extremely dangerous and he can beat you in multiple ways. So yeah, this is kind of a deep cut. Again, I've not seen anybody talk about this, but this is my matchmaking self coming out here. Two guys who I think could bring a lot of value to whatever card that they're on. Next up, Adesanya versus Sean Strickland 2. I just think this makes the most sense in the middleweight division because who is he going to fight? He's already fought Dricus. He's already fought Whitaker multiple times. He just lost to a Mavov. The Strickland rematch, I mean, it just makes the most sense because Kyle Araujo in a Mavov is booked for UFC Paris, if I'm not mistaken. That's a great fight, by the way. But if Izzy's still going to stick around because he didn't retire after the loss to Imavov, it appears that he's still going to give it another chance or two. Who would he fight besides Sean Strickland? And here's the thing: who would he be more motivated to fight besides Sean Strickland? He obviously is coming off the loss to him at a UFC. What was that? Was that like 293 or 294? I'm not sure, but he's coming off a loss to him a couple years ago. He obviously wants to get that back. And in terms of listen, Sean Strickland's last couple fights have been pretty boring. I'm still a fan because I like technical boxing, but I think this could have a chance to be the most entertaining Strickland fight since the first one versus Dricus du Plessis. And also, it could give Izzy a chance to fight a guy who's probably not going to put him away because Izzy's chin has looked very suspect in his last two fights. So, yeah, I would like to see. I think it could be a feel good fight. It could be a chance for both of them to get kind of back to what they used to be, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I want to see this for that reason. And also, like I said, high level name value could be a really good 5-round co-main event to a pay-per-view card. So, a couple of reasons I want to see this fight take place. Next up, Jan Blachowicz versus Dominic Reyes, number 2. Obviously, Blachowicz was one of the guys who knocked out Reyes in his string of knockout losses following the John Jones robbery decision. And I just think it's a great actually to run it back because Reyes is ranked number 8 currently in the division, and Blachowicz is ranked number 5, but he has not won a fight in years. And I mean truly, truly years. And in that meantime that he has not won a fight, Reyes is on a 3-fight knockout streak. Reyes is making a quiet push back to a title shot at light heavyweight. And I think the cap of that storyline would be to get a win back against a guy who, sent him to the Shadow Realm in their first fight. So I think it makes sense because if you look at other guys in the rankings, I mean, Roundtree clearly is going to get a fight in the top end. Yuri versus Olberg seems to be a foregone conclusion. Who is Blachowicz going to fight if it's not Dominic Reyes? Reyes has more so options because there's a lot of guys he has not fought in the top 10. But I would like to see these two guys fight each other because I think Blachowicz has one more good, entertaining fight left in him before he retires. And I would love to see it be against Dominic Reyes, maybe in a fight night main event. That seems like it makes the most sense to me. Next up, Khalil Roundtree versus Alex Pereira 2. I'm not saying this should be the next fight. I think the next fight for the light heavyweight title should be Magomed versus Alex. But in the future, I want to see this rematch because if you look at guys before Ankalaev beat Pereira, if you look at guys at light heavyweight who gave him the most trouble, besides Blachowicz, like striker, like pure strikers who gave Alex the most trouble. Yuri gave him no trouble. Jamal Hill gave him no trouble. Roundtree had a halfway knockdown on him in the first or second round. And I mean, if Roundtree didn't gas out in their first fight, does he beat Pereira? Does he take him to a decision? Who knows? I just think that it was Alex's most entertaining fight at light heavyweight, and I think that given a bit more time to prepare, maybe at a location that is not, Utah, Salt Lake City level elevation, maybe Roundtree could come in and be a little bit more prepared and give Alex a tougher challenge, right? Maybe this could be a pure striking fight for Alex that he doesn't dominate. I like Roundtree, I like Alex Pereira, and I would like to see this fight ran back eventually, right? Not saying it has to be soon, but I want to see these two guys run it back before it's all said and done. Next up, I would like to see, hopefully, right? Hopefully, Ankalaev and Pereira fight very quickly. But it appears to me that for some reason, the UFC cannot get the rematch booked. So, for some reason, if Alex does not, here's the thing, maybe it's a situation where Alex does get an immediate rematch, but not, he gets a rematch, but he's not the next guy to fight for the title, if you know what I'm saying. Like maybe he gets his instant rematch, but in the meantime, Ankalaev and Yuri Prochazka can fight before the end of the year. You know what I mean? Maybe Alex just wants to take a big break coming off his first loss in a while. But these two guys are like just stylistically, I think this could be a really entertaining title fight because Alex obviously did not have the grappling to kind of shake off Magomed. He kind of was able to get overpowered and held against defense in certain positions. I think Yuri would be able to reverse a lot of takedowns from Magomed, end up in some good positions in the grappling exchanges. And I don't think he would be as passive. Alex had a lot of rounds. Like the narrative about the first fight between Ankalaev and Pereira is that Ankalaev just held him against the fence the whole fight. No, they were striking for at least half of that fight, and Ankalaev outstruck Pereira, and he landed the tougher shots. He rocked Pereira at the end of the second round, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the striking exchange between these two guys would be exciting, and the grappling exchange between these two guys would be very exciting as well. So I just think it would be a more entertaining fight than Magomed versus Pereira would be. So I want to see this fight either as the next lightweight title fight, or sorry, light heavyweight title fight, or just in the future between these two fighters. Next up, Umar versus Song Yadong. It appears that Umar is still not ready to come back from his injury. The UFC just announced I believe it's a fight night card in Abu Dhabi before the end of the year. And who better to headline that than Umar Nurmagomedov? His last fight night main event against Sandhagen was in Abu Dhabi. And if he does come back from his injury, there's not a whole lot of options in terms of top, because obviously, right, it would appear that he is just one fight away from a rematch with Marab, right? Who could he fight, though, in the top of the division? Because he already beat Sandhagen. I want to see Jan versus O'Malley. And, well, also, by the way, Jan has a fight book, so we can't fight Jan. I think O'Malley's taking a big break. Song Yadong is the only other guy in the top five who apparently has no opponent. He has not fought in a couple months after his win over Henry Cejudo. So it just makes the most sense to me. Umar needs a bounce back fight. Song Yadong is looking for his shot in the top three. Makes sense for both guys. Makes sense based off the rankings. And I also think it would be an entertaining 5-round main event. So please, UFC, make it happen. Next up, we have Alexander Rakic versus Azamat Murzakanov. Now, I recently found out who this guy Azamat was on UFC 316. He knocked some dude out in like 40, like the first punch he threw knocked some dude out at light heavyweight at UFC 316. And listen, this guy just seems like an absolute beast, right? He's undefeated. Like, I think he's like 14 and 0, and he could be on a fast track to a title shot. I think he's 2 fights away. And the question is, before he gets a crack into the top five, who's kind of a stepping stone in the top 10 for him? It would appear that that guy is Alexander Rakic. Now, he has not fought in a while. I think his last fight was at UFC 308, and that was a fight against Magomed Ankalaev, if I'm not mistaken. It was actually a decision. It went to a decision. It was a pretty close striking matchup, but Ankalaev got the edge over Rakic. But it's like Rakic has lost, but he's lost to the best of the best, right? He's lost to Ankalaev. He's lost to Yuri Prochazka. I don't know who that third loss is against, but I just want to see these two guys face off. Think it could be very interesting. Because I think Rakic is a very dangerous striker as well. I think he could hurt Azamat Murzakanov, but I want to see these two guys fight, and because I'm keeping a close eye on Azamat's potential push for a light heavyweight title shot. Finally, the only heavyweight matchup I could even think of being interested in is Shamil Gaziev versus Tai Tuivasa. First of all, how on earth is Tai Tuivasa not been cut by the UFC? The man has not won a fight in who knows how long. He loses to literally everybody. The last guy he lost to just got cut by the UFC. So please he needs to win his next fight to stay in the UFC. And what better opponent than the real deal, the real meal, Shamil Gaziev? Listen, heavyweight sucks. There's just not a lot to look forward to. Gaziev somehow was ranked number 11. Tai Tuivasa is ranked number 10, even though his last win, let me see, what year did he last win a fight? His last win was in February of 2022. It's been over 3 years since he's won a fight, and he's still ranked in the top 10. That's how poverty heavyweight division is. But yeah, Shamil's putting out Tai Tuivasa, and he's taking his top 10 ranking. Please, I need to see it. If you enjoyed that video, please leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, we will get back to the NFL videos very shortly here. So I will see you on the next one. Peace.